This is the Old Doctor Who Show, episode number 103. The King's Demons. My demons. Oh, are you demons too?
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, baby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS would be free of the force field.
But the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's a but it's person.
Resulting reaction described. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the Old Doctor Who Show, your tri-weekly classic Doctor Who review podcast. I am Eric, joined as always by my friend and your friend. And, I don't know. What other adjectives do you want to... Friend's not an adjective, it's a noun. Dan, why don't you just start talking?
Oh, it's my turn now.
It's your turn, because...
Hey.
Yeah.
I am Dan. Eric, how you doing in this new world that we live in?
It's hard to tell, Dan, because...
3 weeks ago was a very different energy.
So much happened in the last 3 weeks. At least in the United States, it was a very hard-fought election. You know, both sides made their case, the people voted, and everybody recognized the election, and it's been a smooth transition of power since. There's no more stress.
Really gracious.
There's
really gracious handover.
There's no demonstrations. It's been great. It's been perfect.
Just a lot of congratulations on both sides up and down the line. It's been really, really amazing to see.
We don't want to talk about politics. I will say this, though. I was watching too much news, and it was ruining my life. And
yes.
I was like, I'm going to stop. And then I told myself, once the election happens, then I'll be hooked on that until they pick a winner. And it was a horrible set of days. No sleeping. Just waking up, looking at your phone, seeing what's happening. And then once at least the media announced a winner, I was like, okay, I am done. And I stopped everything. And it was great.
Yep.
It was great. And then I accidentally looked at the news one day, and Mike Pompeo was saying it will be a smooth transition to the guy who lost. And then it was like, well, do you just pretend that everything's fine and avoid it or do you look and see the end coming? So I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle.
Same route and decided that I wasn't going to, and then I did continue on. So giving you that perspective, I would say you were best off just put your fingers in your ears, say la 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 until January 20th, and that's it.
I hope so, but isn't that how these bad things happen? Is because everybody sticks their fingers in their ears and they don't see it until it's too late?
No. The people whose fingers shouldn't be in their ears and should have their fingers elsewhere.
Put your fingers elsewhere, friends, with your very own chameleon robot that you can... Yeah.
Oh, so, all right. You want to talk about that instead?
Let's talk about the King's Demons. My demons.
Which is interesting because it's about the Magna Carta and the beginnings of representative democracy.
It is, yeah.
Which almost came to an end. So this all ties together nicely.
That movie's not over. But yeah, let's jump. Unless you have anything else, I don't know if there's any Doctor Who related news or anything.
Probably, but who cares?
I can't remember what's happened in the last 3 weeks. So let's just jump into it because I do remember what happened way back in the 1200s when the Doctor visited the fake king. So why don't we hit that button, Dan? Hit the button. Take us through. Take us inside. Whoop. Boop, 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 boop.
I have nothing in me today.
Cornbread.
Your Majesty seems in need of a doctor.
Allow me to introduce Chameleon.
Your work.
Alas, modesty forbids such a claim. Chameleon is the tool of an earlier invader of Zerifas, and instrumental in my escape from that benighted planet.
This is your King John.
Look again.
Impressive.
A weapon used by the invaders of Zerifas, a decoy, capable of infinite form or personality.
Interesting.
Well said, my demon. We are a complex mass of artificial neurons.
And controlled by?
Nothing more than simple concentration and psychokinetics. Look again.
Can anyone play?
Please. Quite masterly. You flatter me. I prefer Bad King John.
This is The King's Demons. This was written by Terence Dudley, Dan, which fans of Wikipedia will know that Terence Dudley directed the previous Doctor Who story that we just reviewed called Meglos. So it's like we're going from Terry Dudley behind the camera to behind the typewriter. And now we also have seen other stories from him. Forward to Doomsday. I kind of remember that not being too hot. I don't think it was that great of a story, but it's a little fuzzy.
Sure, it was great.
Black Orchid, which I did like. And this one, which I guess we will get to whether I liked it or not later. This is the 6th serial, the last of the season for season number 20, lucky number 20. This is a story about England in the 1200s when King John is seemingly in two places at once. Dan, how could that be? Well, the weird king is hanging around in his castle of his one of his friends or his underlings, and he wants more money for taxes. And he's also making kind of weird advances on his wife. Like, there's some weird stuff going on there. I'm not really sure. It's like some kind of medieval wife swap thing going on. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough arrived there, and to be honest, I completely forgot how they got there or why they got there. And for a 2-part episode, you think I would have known, but I don't remember. Somehow they just appear, and the Doctor knows, hey, this king is a fake, he's a fraud, he's a phony. Who could be behind this treachery? And what's the deal with that French knight, Dan? What did you think of the King's Demons? My demons!
Overall, it was a fine story.
It was a fine tale.
This is not my favorite group of protagonists. This Doctor and this combination of companions.
It's weirdly tense relationship between all three of them.
It always is. There's especially you see it. It's the same stuff we talked about before, but you see it so much in the final scene of the story.
When he's threatening to take her home,
threatening to take Tegan home, but he's also at the same time he's doing that. He's also very like buddy and giving knowing looks to Turlough.
It's weird,
at the exclusion of Tegan. It feels really weird and. Turlough's the one that was like in trouble the whole time and like getting captured and shit. But it's I don't know, that relationship is just toxic from top to bottom. I think that Davison's performance is better here than I remember in some other stories. Obviously, it's later, and he's found the character much more at the end of this season. But yes, I just hate that relationship so much. Otherwise, I do wish that BritBox and all of the other streaming services or whatever would stop using spoilers as their thumbnails for the stories. Like, I didn't have to know that Chameleon and the Master were in this by happening to see the thumbnail for the second part. Like, that's just not fair. Not that it was like a huge deal. The makeup to hide Ainsley's face, like to make him look like someone else, it's not great, but it's not necessarily a dead giveaway. So you could have been forgiven to not know that it was him. But they just completely spoiled that, and that would have been nice to see instead, to come across that organically than to have it spoiled. But other than that, I mean, it was fine. There wasn't a whole lot to it. I don't love the historical ones all that much, but I think the performances were very good. I liked the actor playing Bad King John. Always loved this iteration of the Master, so that was a lot of fun. And the supporting cast was good, so overall it's fine. Eric, what did you think about this top line?
I thought it was very mediocre. Fine. It wasn't it wasn't terrible. It wasn't good. It was,
Sure.
You know what? I think there was a good story here if they had. We always talk about less episodes. I feel like you needed more episodes in this one. I thought the king, the evil king, was very fun. Even though he just kept saying "my demons," oh demon, like that was just a little too much on that side. The story itself was kind of super weak. I mean, I guess the Master's plan is to destroy democracy, or something.
Can I say,
which is fine.
Even the Doctor says that. Even the Doctor says, like, when they're trying to figure out like what's going on, and the Doctor's like, something like, it was a very small thing for the Master. Like, this didn't. He said something to make it sound like I don't know why he's bothering with this either. Right. It was like, normally he's trying to take over the universe, but in this case, he's just trying to mess with human hits. Like, it's
and then he makes his TARDIS look like the Iron Maiden. Like, how did that even work? Like, he just appeared one day and he came out of it and he's like, I'll just make it look like they would know where their Iron Maiden was. Like, all of a sudden there's a new Iron Maiden. Did he arrive as the French guy and go, I brought my own? Did they ever test it out when you put someone in there and there's no blood coming out? So I thought that was a fun little thing when the Master was like really acting. He was really giving it his all. Like, I don't want to get put in the Iron Maiden. And then he was like, whatever, it's a TARDIS. That was fine.
Did you see that coming though? That was
no,
his TARDIS?
I didn't see that coming at all.
I liked
that
a lot.
Practically, it was like, okay,
sure.
I thought the end of this was terrible. So like, you have like a whole story. Like, the first part was actually pretty good, and I was like, oh, where is this going to go? But like, the fact that the end of this is like a battle of a mind battle between the Doctor and the Master over control of Chameleon was like, what? So now, like, the Doctor can pretty much just control robots if he wants to?
No. I mean, that's the function of Chameleon, though. Chameleon is controlled that way. So it's not that he can control any robot. It's that is how you control
he's got a
Chameleon.
mind
I don't
link.
know why.
It was
exactly.
a little weird.
That's what they say. They say
you bring that up.
I don't know why.
You bring that up, but I don't remember. I remember we definitely reviewed Chameleon. Maybe it was The Awakening. I don't remember what. It was a Peter Davison story. I don't remember. I know we did him. I don't remember what his whole power set is or whatever, other than looking like people.
I think the only other one that we did that had Chameleon, I think, was the one that he dies in. So
it was just weird. Like, they did this thing, like this.
Yeah.
Hard cut back and forth, really extreme close-ups of their two minds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the Doctor wins because Chameleon then looks like Tegan, and you're like, I guess.
Yeah, that was weird.
I don't know.
Why?
Could have just made him look like Chameleon, or whatever. They made him look like, or Chameleon look like Tegan, and then they bring Chameleon to the TARDIS, and then it's over, and you're like, oh, I guess it's over. Like, it's just over. It was a weird, so it felt like a very rushed ending. If this had been maybe a 3-parter, like just a little bit more to go on. There's some weird stuff like Sir Geoffrey, I think, which is the cousin, right? The cousin of Ranulph or whatever. I don't remember the guy's name. The Earl of whatever. Like, when he does, he like hangs out with the Doctor, and he's like, all right, go tell the king, that. I forget what he goes to tell him, the king, and he's like, I can get there in 4 hours, and the Doctor's like, I get you there faster than that, which he never does, because then they put that guy in a horse, and then he just gets shot by a crossbow, and then dies later. Yeah. Why was he saying, I'm going to get you there faster? I'm thinking, he's going to take the Master's TARDIS, which is the but he just does some stuff on it, and then they stick him on a horse, and he gets shot in the back.
They were going to use their TARDIS,
right? But then they get caught before. Or whatever.
It was dragged away, so he didn't have a way to get him there any faster. So he said, "I'm going to get
you." But
he
already
faster.
sent him on the
That
horse,
was before.
Though. Didn't he already send him on the horse at the same time that they get caught? Is the same time that the guy's leaving on the horse, and then the Master tells the guy to shoot him with the crossbow.
Right.
It was just it was weird. Like, I don't know. It was a little strange. Okay. And they just have that character there just to die. Just to gasp, like, whatever his final words were, which weren't kind of, he didn't...
It was like, basically, go find the Doctor.
He was just there for some reason. Hugh the Son, I found incredibly annoying. That guy. A lot of the characters I found kind of annoying. I would give this maybe a little less than mediocre. Yeah, and I like the period stuff. Like, I usually do like the King stuff. I just felt like when you sort of back away a little bit and you look at, like, the story, not a lot. I mean, I don't know. Like,
there's not much
there.
There's
not really nothing there.
Yeah,
like, the Master,
there really isn't.
I usually like, but his whole plan is kind of like... Because he doesn't know the Doctor's coming, so he's just going to put this fake king in. The king's going to act weird. That's going to prevent Magna Carta from happening, even though the real king is at some point there's going to be two kings, and there's going to be other problems, and then it's a little strange. It's not like he killed the king and replaced him with a fake king,
which would have been a much more straightforward.
Shrink him with your shrink ray, put him in your pocket, and then he could have pulled the. So it was a little like.
But instead, instead he's 4 hours
he's
away,
opening
in some
himself
other
up
castle.
for complications. Dan is what he's doing.
Yeah. It's almost as though the Master's crazy and doesn't really think things through. I mean, it is strange. Like again, it's one of these things. Like, the story opens with them in the control room, and either Tegan or Turlough asks the Doctor, where are we? And he says, they're on Earth, 1215. It's England. Are these the coordinates you set? And he says no. So it's the same thing, and they make a joke about it later, where it's like, the Master is going to go anywhere but whatever his coordinates are set because of the shrinky ray thing that the Doctor did with his time circuits. And I think Tegan makes the joke like, "Oh, just like your TARDIS." Like,
right.
But it's one of those things where just like he just happened to run into him there. It would have been, I don't know.
Yeah, like if he had sensed some kind of like disturbance in time or something because they were changing democracy or anything.
But they don't even say.
No,
they don't even say that. Like, I don't need it all explained, but just to say like, oh, it got dragged here because of such and such,
not just the
thing.
coincidence.
Just drop a term and be fine with it. But instead, it makes it more of the happenstance, which makes the whole thing just feels really shaggy. Even the parts that are kind of plotted out, it doesn't really feel like there's
I want to talk a little bit about Chameleon again. So, like, Chameleon...
Why?
Because you must know more than I do at this point about Chameleon, because you have the back tattoo.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I had the back tattoo before I even heard of Chameleon.
Yeah, that was was an interesting coincidence. All right, so they make a point of saying Chameleon has his own agency, right? Like, he's like, even the Doctor, I think, says something to the Master, like, oh, he's got his own personality, like he is his own person, even though the Master is controlling Chameleon at times. Right. Whose idea was it to get weird about the guy's wife, where they're like, we're taking your wife away, and then I think the king says, like, I may pay her a visit. Or he says something, like, kind of weird. Remember the part where
that line.
It's in the first episode where he takes the wife of the guy, and she's like, I'll go willingly. I guess it's like insurance in case he tries himself.
Yes.
But unless I completely blacked out and added this line, I believe the king says something along the lines of, like, he's going to pay her a visit. And I just want to know, is that the Master making him say that, or is Chameleon just this android perv that's his own, like, he's bringing that to the table on his own?
Can it be both?
Yeah, and, like, which parts, like, is the Chameleon a good person or a bad person? If he's completely of his own agency, he's also got his own personality. How are we supposed to know what's what at that point?
Yeah, actually, so that's really interesting. So I don't understand. I'm coming back to that. I don't understand why we end with Chameleon being allowed to travel on the TARDIS with the Doctor when, as you say, sure, he's being controlled to some extent by whomever has the strongest.
He's a
brain,
liability
at
that point. If anybody with mind powers can just,
I guess, but at the same time, they do say that he can take any form and any personality, and he does say that he is not a machine, not just a machine. He has his own agency, so he does feel like he collaborated in that.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, he's controlled. I don't know. It's really, it just didn't feel right that he would be like, okay, can you take me with you? And the Doctor's like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I guess he's like, I'm carrying this deadweight Tegan around. I might as well have someone else around.
Yeah,
too.
and I remember when we did talk about Chameleon
group
the first time, like, if memory serves me correctly, the guy that designed him or was building him died, right? Is that the deal? Like, he died before they could finish putting him together, so he had a lot of issues, so he was supposed to be in more stories than he actually ended up. And, like, the production team had a really hard time controlling him, and they sort of wrote him out, but I think his, like, Geppetto died. Maybe I made that part up, or, you know, if we want to do a biopic or something.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
Let's just say that's true. I don't know what it's going to be. I told you, like, before we started recording, I feel like this is probably going to be a short review because I feel like there's so little to say about any of it. Even stuff that's, like, dumb to goof on. There's really, like, other than the guy keeps saying, my much. Demons. It was just like, okay. I guess it's okay.
It was very...
You get sword fighting.
It was the quickest two-part... Oh, the sword fighting is just terrible, but that's kind of the era.
Right.
And as I'm kind of watching that, you can see as the fight is going on, you know, first person puts his sword down, and the other one aims at the sword at the ground. Like, it's just, like, not even anywhere. Like, it's really, really awful. But yeah, you're right. There's so little to the story.
Yep.
Everything is so okay, fine for all the acting. I thought, you know, I liked the acting more than you did. The characters didn't bother you as much. Like, the son was fine. I think he had motivation behind him. The cousin coming in, I thought the wife was good.
Yeah,
like,
she
everyone
was
fine.
hardly. I mean, she gets thrown in jail, but and there's those awkward jail scenes. There's, like, a lot of those things where they're just saying, like, I'm here to rescue you, but you're the bad guy, and I'm not the bad guy. And Turlough had nothing really to
that
do
back and forth stuff
other than get arrested at one point and kind of whine a little bit. He didn't really have, like, I'm trying to think, what did Turlough do? What would Turlough do, but what did Turlough do? Nothing.
Yeah, as opposed to your typical, like, guiding principles, what would Turlough do? Yeah, I mean, but you're right, back to your point, like, this is a short review just because there isn't a whole lot to cover.
Right, as another point, I had read in something, I don't remember if it was Wikipedia or whatever, that this was the first part of this was the 600th Doctor Who episode, which seems like a huge deal, and yet it was just such a blah story.
Yeah.
Now, maybe just the fact that how the production schedule worked, it wasn't intended to be, because this feels like if you're going to do a 600, it could have been like the 5 Doctors or something that would be a little bit more celebratory, but I guess this was like, I don't know, seems a little odd.
Well, I mean, to that point, though, I think the next story is the 5 Doctors, so they couldn't really do the two together in that way. You know what I mean?
No. What?
So the next story that airs
is the 5 Doctors?
Okay. Yeah. So the fact that this was 600 just happened to coincide. So perhaps if it hadn't been a anniversary time that that the 5 Doctors came out, they may have made a bigger deal of this, but instead they do it as the next story.
Gotcha.
As a special.
It's fine. I mean, it's
fine
for like a story. A one-off sort of adventure. It's okay. Like, it's not like we've certainly reviewed worse.
Right.
I just did.
This
didn't
felt
love
like it felt like, and I do kind of agree with you that they could have made a third part of this and fleshed out the story more, and it probably
especially
the
ending and develop any of the characters.
Just figure out develop the characters, the plot, whatever. That would have been fine. But I also could have seen this as being, one of the traditional, like, 4-parters with the same amount of story, same characters, same plotting, and it could have been 4 parts, and we would be, like, just ripping our hair out over that. So I'm happier with a brief 2-parter that's a quick in and out.
Well, it makes our life easier.
Middle of the road.
Yeah, definitely makes my life easier.
And to me, at least having a better portrayal by Davison than I remember, because it's been a while since we've done a Davison story, because as we're looping back through, it's like, oh, okay, it's one of the better ones for him. I still don't like the character that much. He's just a jerk to Tegan.
He's not
like
my
I
favorite.
said.
One part I did like was when the Doctor goes into the changing room. Oh, actually, when they show, like, Chameleon singing the sea chanty or whatever he's doing, and it looks like an animatronic at, like, a Disney World
Chuck E.
knockoff
Cheese. Yeah.
thing doing. But when the Doctor comes in and then the Master is there, and then they show Chameleon turn into the Doctor, and then they have the Chameleon turn into the Master, and then the Master is like, yeah, go right back to the King. We're not going to play with this idea at all anymore, so just... You know, you think like at that point he's like, oh, he's going to look like the Doctor and then go out and be the Doctor.
Right.
Nope. They're like, yeah, he can do this stuff, but we're not playing with this. Like, it's not really even that important to the story. Just
we
go
don't
back
have the
to
time and budget to actually explore this
Right.
idea, so just forget we even did that. We'll come back to this later.
He could do these cool things, but he's not. He's only going to look like the King. Okay, I guess. King with my demons.
I overall like the design, like on paper, like as a drawing of Chameleon. I think the design is actually really cool.
Yeah,
it's just not realized very well at all.
Right.
It just looks like a mannequin, and it looks like the posture's all wrong. It's so unconvincing. And I guess I didn't know this, but the fact that you're saying that it was so hard to control, that they didn't use it, it shows. It's
there's
not
very
well
limited.
executed, but the idea is pretty cool.
We got to talk about the Black Guardian. Because there is mention of the Black Guardian, but he actually has nothing to do with this. Right?
No.
Don't they think it's the Black Guardian? But
That's correct.
And we talked before we started recording, we both were like, oh yeah, the Black Guardian. And then I was like, wait, what? What was the Black Guardian?
So the reason why Tegan mentions that, I think she says that in context of like, did you set the coordinates for this location
she thinks it's
this
a trap
time?
or something.
And she's like, oh, maybe, is it the Black Guardian that's doing this? And it had been the previous story.
Well, it goes back to Key of Time with Baker, right?
It goes back to the Key of Time,
Guardian,
but the immediately previous story is Enlightenment, and that's where they have like pirate space ship race across the solar system, and the Black Guardian and White Guardian feature into that one. I think at the end of that whole run.
Yeah, that actually was a pretty good story from what I remember.
Yeah, and Turlo is going to be evil Turlo and all that stuff. So that was actually kind of a big thing. So for people at the time, this would have made a lot of sense.
So it's a tease, and you're like, yes, and then they're like, no, it's not that.
No, we're going to give you this bullshit instead. But for us, that is over 50 stories ago for us.
Is that real?
Happened.
Is that true?
So forgive us for not remembering exactly. It was around episode 50 of our review, somewhere around there. So forgive us if we don't remember the Black Guardian. That was literally years ago.
Yeah.
That
we were such different people then.
Oh, different world we lived in.
We went through one whole U.S. election cycle, which is scary.
Amazing.
And had some years to spare because it doesn't matter. Everything's fine.
Anyway, yeah, everything's great. Is there anything else to cover in this one, or did we? I think we pretty much beat this horse to death.
I don't know. Did we?
That's
is it
not
really that short of a thing?
It is. It's that straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot to it.
Do we remember the Master's last appearance before this? Like, where did we see him? Was this like when the fact that it is the Master? I don't remember. Is this because you always think he's dead or he's in some kind of? They leave him and he's always in some kind of. Weird,
oh, that's true.
Was the last time we saw him with Adric?
Yes. So I was just looking that up. This is the first appearance of this Master. Yeah, so
he was last seen walking into a grandfather clock,
Anthony
right?
Ainley's. What's that?
He was last seen walking into a grandfather clock. Because I remember, I don't remember what story it was, but there's some story where his TARDIS looks like a grandfather clock, and he goes in it at the end. But I can't tell you what that was from.
They make reference in the story, so that's where Chameleon's coming from. That the Master had been imprisoned someplace.
Oh.
And that the Chameleon was the way that he got off of that planet because it was. Yeah, I didn't follow that very well because it's not, from what I can tell, it's not even in a story. Like, it's not in a televised story. I think there's only like a novelization that tells that story of how the Master was imprisoned and how Chameleon came into all of that. But it was completely over my head whenever they're talking about it, which is funny because there's not a whole lot going on in the story. And the one part that is kind of interesting, is not a thing they even explore. But yeah, so the Master was apparently...
I'm probably wrong. I just looked up. I had to look up. I was like, grandfather clock, Master. That was from The Deadly Assassin, where he was going in the grandfather clock, and his face was in the grandfather clock or something. Sure. Anyway, or Keeper of Traken. I don't know. So it's all blending together for me.
Yeah,
Keeper of
I don't
Traken.
know. I mean, so if anyone wants to correct us on this, but apparently the Master was imprisoned on Zarathus, and Chameleon's a weapon. and the master used it to his own ends to escape. So that's how he got off there.
Cool.
I don't see that it's a TV story anywhere. It seems like it's just prose, but if we're wrong, please let us know about that, as you often do, which we
Dan,
appreciate.
I have nothing. It sounds like you got nothing. Did
Nothing.
anybody in the Doctor Who universe, or the old Doctor Who universe, have anything to say about this particular story?
Well, our friends on Twitter had a few things to say, so thank you guys, as always, for getting back to us and giving us your thoughts on this. Our friend Bernard says about this story, underrated. Davo, the Davison is naturally great as ever in it. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you like him a lot more than we do. But again, this is one of the better than my recollection of Davison. So going back to your tweet, you said, the droid is really good on screen. Fans always moan about how cumbersome it is to operate, but it's a really beautiful creation. Okay. Kudos to the recently separated Frank Windsor, too. Isla Blair and Ainley. Love his disguise. So Isla Blair is Isabella, and the Frank Windsor is Randolph in this story. So that's the cousin, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, I slightly disagree. Like I said, I think that as a design, Chameleon looks cool, but it doesn't look great on screen. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I like the way it looks. I don't mind the animatronic nature of him. I just wish maybe he had a little bit more interesting things to say, or they used him in a different way, or they took I don't know.
I wonder. So
everything's fine.
This is 1983. I wonder how much of that is like based on C-3PO being so popular around that time. I wonder
a
how
lot
much
of
that played into it. Because it's really
very
similar in
and
design
like
now that I think about it.
When did K9 start? I feel like, was that inspired by freaking Star Wars, or did that predate
No,
Star
I think
Wars?
I feel like K9 was much earlier in the 70s than Star Wars. Anyway, just made me think of it. Our friend Paul Paranoid says, oh no, I've only got bad memories of this period. Like Doctor Who is being filmed on a drizzly afternoon on the rugby field at your miserable secondary school with actors from a bad soap. And a robotic mannequin. Sorry to be a downer. Hey, I don't think we disagree with that entirely, but yeah, it was just fine.
It was just okay.
Creator Talk says it's a good two-parter. I'm always up for the Master and Chameleon as a bigger part. It always reminds me of Christmas because that's the time of year I first saw it.
Well, there you go.
That's
good
nice.
Memory.
Having some good recollections of it, but does not make me think of Christmas. It's just it's a lump of coal. John Seymour says, not one of my favorites. All feels a bit inconsequential, a lame plan even by the master's standards. And what is going on with his disguise? How did they ever think Chameleon would work as a companion? But the song, All Together Now, we sing in praise of Total War. Yeah, that song was something. And they had to reprise it twice. It was kind of interesting. I thought when Chameleon as the king is playing the lute and singing the song, people are going to be like, wait, the king doesn't play the lute. But no, nothing comes of that. He's just wants to get out his jams. But I think we agree with that as well. And the World Enough in Time podcast says about this story, it's inconsequential, weird, silly, but great song. Okay. So I think everyone's pretty much saying it's middle of the pack.
I think we're pretty much.
Although
in agreement.
Bernard says it needs to be rated a little bit higher than most people think, but yeah, overall middle of the road. So I think that covers it for this.
Yeah, we had
Eric.
we had an email, but I feel like didn't we already read this email? We got an email.
I don't know
from
which email you're talking about.
Paul Paranoid, but I feel like it's the La La Tom thing, which we did already, right? Or am I crazy?
Yeah. Thank you for the email again, Paul. I did read through that, and that was some. He gave us some more of the backstory based on reading some articles and interviews with Lala Ward, and also some of the DVD commentary, and kind of putting that all together into one place for us. So that was actually really helpful. But yeah, we've talked about this already in the story. But thank you for the feedback.
We
that
also do not have any reviews to read. We haven't had one since July 10th. Not that I'm looking.
Hint.
But if you want to break that trend, you can go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com and click on subscribe, and you will find the podcast platform of your choice. Click through and leave a review. If you want to send us any real mail, you can use P.O. Box 2131, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701. If you include a self-addressed stamped envelope, you will certainly get one of those famous stickers that everyone's talking about.
Famous.
You can find us on Instagram at TODW Show. And what else, Dan?
That's the same for Twitter as well. That's the same for Twitter. TODW Show.
We are not on Facebook, don't try to... I don't know what's going on the page. Imagine you probably go to the old Doctor Who Show.com Facebook page, just full of hardcore... It's just full of hardcore. It's full of hardcore. It's just full of,
hardcore
your favorite New Jersey hardcore.
Ska bands. New Jersey man, that brings me back. Mid-90s, Jersey hardcore. Okay, so next up in 3 weeks, we are reviewing the first Doctor story, The Romans. Eric, you'll be happy to know it is a 4-parter. And we got some Ian and Barbara in there. That's going to make you happy.
We're going all the way back to Hartnell.
So that Hartnell
all the way back
again. So,
oh my God!
Everyone, watch The Romans. For
mentally prepare yourself, because after The Romans, we have 6 weeks of Troughton, where we do War Games Part 1 and 2. Each part is 5 parts. Because for some reason, War Games is a 10-part story. Now, it better be complete. Like, if we have to watch some kind of slideshow, I'm going to go nuts.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, 5 of the parts have to be completely, like, fan-recreated audio only. That'll be great. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's it.
But until then, get in touch with us and watch The Romans. And we will chat with you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then feel free to go to Amazon.com and type in Goblin, Goblin, space Eric, space Grissom, and find the book and pre-order for $15. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying that would be nice.
That would be very nice to support Eric.
And now that's it.
We did it.
We did it. Good night, everybody. Good day, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.